Seeds of tension. The galactic horizon was no longer the uncharted expanse it had once been. Humanity, with its unyielding curiosity, had stretched its grasp far beyond Earth's orbit, colonizing moons and planets alike. Yet, with this expansion came new challenges, chief among them, the Reptilians. First contact with the Reptilians was not the grand, unifying event humanity had envisioned. Instead, it was shrouded in suspicion and unease. The Reptilians, fleeing the gravitational chaos of their dying homeworld, Zephyllon, arrived seeking refuge and coexistence. Their advanced terraforming technology promised to breathe life into Earth's ailing ecosystems, but their methods, shapeshifting and secrecy, stirred paranoia among humans. The tension came to a head during an unprecedented summit on Ganymede Station. Delegates from Earth, Mars, and the newly recognized Reptilian Union gathered in a room heavy with unspoken hostility. For seasoned Earth diplomat Emma Carter and enigmatic Reptilian envoy Kale, the stakes were not just political but deeply personal. The tension builds the conference room on Ganymede Station brimmed with the understated menace of diplomacy. Delegates from Earth, Mars, and the newly recognized Reptilian Union had gathered under the guise of trade negotiations. While the discussions appeared civil, the undercurrent of mistrust was palpable. Emma Carter, a seasoned Earth diplomat, represented humanity's interests. Every calculated word from her sharp tongue cut through the ambiguous statements of the opposing parties. She had mastered the delicate balance between poise and assertiveness, her emerald eyes scanning the room with the precision of a hawk. Opposite her sat Kale, the enigmatic Reptilian envoy, whose human guise was flawless. Broad-shouldered and composed, he exuded a quiet confidence that demanded attention. To the untrained eye, he was merely another ambitious diplomat. But Emma saw glimpses of something deeper, something that didn't belong. Kale leaned forward, his voice calm and resonant. The Reptilian Union is not here to demand. We are here to collaborate. Our terraforming technology can revive Earth's barren regions. All we ask is for your acceptance of Reptilian settlers. Emma's reply was measured. And what happens when this collaboration becomes an encroachment? Humanity has seen its share of invaders, Kale. We're cautious for a reason. Kale met her gaze, a flicker of something unreadable passing through his golden brown eyes. Caution is understandable. But fear leads to stagnation. We're not asking for dominance. We're asking for survival. A shared night that evening, Emma wandered into the station's observation deck, seeking solace beneath the simulated starlight. She stared out at Jupiter's swirling clouds, her thoughts a chaotic storm of doubts. I didn't think you'd be here, Kale's voice interrupted her reverie. Emma turned, startled but composed. Diplomacy can be exhausting. Kale stepped beside her, his hands clasped behind his back. And isolating. Emma raised an eyebrow. Is this the part where you try to humanize yourself? Kale chuckled softly. Perhaps. Or maybe it's the part where I remind you that I'm not as different as you think. Emma steadied him, her skepticism apparent. You hide behind a mask, Kale. If you want humanity's trust, start by showing us who you really are. Kale hesitated, the weight of her words evident. Trust is a fragile thing, Emma. If I showed you my true self, would you still stand here? Emma's gaze didn't waver. That depends on who you really are. For a moment, silence enveloped them, the artificial stars above casting a faint glow on their figures. Kale sighed, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his facade. My people are dying, Emma, he admitted. Zephyllon is on the brink of collapse. We're not here to conquer. We're here to survive. Emma's expression softened, but she maintained her composure. Survival doesn't justify deception. If you want coexistence, you have to earn it. Kale nodded slowly. Then let this be the first step. A discovery as the days passed, Emma began to notice anomalies in the reports she received. Resources were vanishing from earthbound supply routes, and political unrest seemed unnervingly coordinated. The patterns pointed to covert reptilian activity. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma followed a lead to an isolated outpost on the station. There, she found Kale in his natural form. His iridescent green scales shimmered under the dim light, and his golden eyes were sharp yet strangely gentle. For a moment, Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. You lied to me, she said, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. Kale turned, his reptilian form towering yet graceful. I didn't lie. I withheld the truth. That's the same thing, Emma snapped, her hands clenched into fists. You've been manipulating us all along. Kale took a step closer, his movements deliberate. Emma, listen to me. Everything I've done has been for my people. Cephalon is dying. We had no choice. Emma shook her head, her voice rising. You had a choice. You could have told me the truth, and risked everything? Kale's voice cracked, desperation seeping through. Risked losing you? Emma's eyes widened, her anger momentarily overshadowed by confusion. What are you talking about? Kale hesitated, then spoke softly. I care about you, Emma. More than I should. And that terrifies me. For, emotional turning point, the mask falls a fractured alliance. Emma's trust in Kale wavered, but she couldn't deny the sincerity in his confession. Torn between duty and emotion, she decided to work with him to uncover the full extent of the Reptilian plan. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a faction within the Reptilian Union that sought not coexistence, but domination. These extremists believed humanity was weak and undeserving of Earth's resources. They were the ones orchestrating the thefts and unrest, undermining Kale's mission of peace. One night, as they reviewed the evidence, Emma confronted Kale. Did you know about this? Kale's expression was grim. I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it. Emma crossed her arms, her tone sharp. And now? What are you going to do about it? Kale met her gaze, determination hardening his features. I'll stop them. Even if it means betraying my own kind. A growing bond as they worked together, Emma and Kale's relationship deepened. Their shared mission forced them to rely on each other, breaking down the barriers of mistrust. During one quiet moment, Emma asked, Do you ever miss Cephalon? Kale's gaze grew distant. Every day. But it's not the home I remember. The three-body problem has turned it into a wasteland. Emma frowned. The three-body problem? Kale explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. Our planet is caught between three suns. The gravitational chaos has made life impossible. We had to leave. Emma's heart ached at the pain in his voice. I'm sorry. Kale looked at her, his golden eyes softening. You're the first human who's ever said that. The extremists strike the Reptilian extremists launched a daring attack on Ganymede Station, targeting human and reptilian delegates alike. Kale and Emma found themselves trapped in the chaos, forced to rely on each other to survive. As explosions rocked the station, Emma shouted, We need to get to the escape pods. Kale nodded, his reptilian reflexes guiding them through the crumbling corridors. But when they reached the pods, they found only one remaining. Kale gestured toward it. You go. I'll find another way. Emma shook her head, her voice firm. I'm not leaving without you. Kale hesitated, then stepped into the pod with her. As it launched into the void, Emma realized how much she had come to trust him. A joint fight for peace and love. The turning point. Kale and Emma's escape pod landed on a remote moon, where they regrouped and devised a plan to expose the extremists. Using the data they had gathered, they broadcast a message to both human and reptilian leaders, revealing the truth. Kale's message was heartfelt and unflinching. We cannot let fear and hatred dictate our future. Humanity and reptilians can coexist, but only if we stand united against those who seek to divide us. Emma stood beside him, her voice strong. We have a chance to build something greater than ourselves. Let's not waste it. A new beginning. The summit reconvened under tighter security, and this time, Kale revealed his true form to the delegates. Though met with initial shock, his honesty earned him respect. Emma spoke passionately, her words carrying the weight of their shared journey. Kale showed me that trust can bridge even the widest divides. Let's not let fear blind us to the possibilities of unity. Their plea for peace succeeded, leading to a groundbreaking agreement. Reptilians were allowed to integrate into human society, with strict safeguards to protect Earth's balance. An unbreakable bond. As Kale and Emma stood on the observation deck, watching the stars, Kale took her hand. Thank you, Emma. For everything. Emma smiled, her heart full. We're just getting started. Their love, forged in the fires of conflict, became a symbol of hope for two species learning to coexist. Together, they proved that even in the vastness of the universe, love could conquer all. Love, sacrifice, and a new beginning. The escape pod rattled violently as it descended toward an uncharted moon, leaving the smoldering remains of Ganymede Station behind. Emma gripped the seat, her heart pounding, while Kale's steady gaze remained fixed on the navigation console. In that moment, they weren't a human and a reptilian, they were survivors, bound by trust forged in fire. As the pod landed with a jarring thud, Kale broke the silence. "We have a narrow window. The extremists won't rest until they silence us." Emma nodded, her resolve steeling. "Then let's not give them the chance." Unity amid chaos. The moon was barren, its surface a labyrinth of jagged rocks and caves. Kale led Emma to a concealed hollow, activating a small beacon designed to send an encrypted signal. The data they had risked their lives to obtain, the names, strategies, and locations of the extremist faction, was their weapon against chaos. "We need allies," Emma said, her voice steady but urgent. "This can't just be our fight." Kale's expression was somber. "Even among my own kind, trust is fragile. Many see coexistence as surrender, and humanity isn't much better," Emma replied, her tone laced with frustration. "But we can't let that stop us." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch both grounding and tender. "Then we fight. Together." The message heard across the stars, their broadcast, sent simultaneously to Earth and the Reptilian Union, was a raw plea for unity. Kale, now fully revealed in his reptilian form, stood beside Emma, their contrasting appearances a stark testament to the alliance they represented. Kale began, his voice resonant. "Zephyllon skies are a lesson in chaos. We lived in the shadow of destruction, and now we seek peace, not conquest. But peace requires honesty." Emma stepped forward, her voice carrying the conviction of their shared journey. "We've seen what fear can do. It divides, destroys, and blinds us to what's possible. But trust? Trust can rebuild what fear tears apart." Their message rippled across both species, igniting debate and reflection. Some humans saw Kale's vulnerability as a gesture of goodwill, others remained skeptical. Among the Reptilians, factions wavered, their leaders divided between the extremists' aggressive stance and Kale's vision of unity. The battle for coexistence. Before their allies could respond, the extremists launched a final assault. Ships descended on the moon, their weaponry lighting up the barren skies. Kale and Emma, armed with little more than their determination, took to the caves, using the terrain to their advantage. "Keep moving!" Kale shouted as debris rained down around them. Emma fired back at their pursuers, her aim sharp despite the chaos. "We're sitting ducks here." Kale activated a hidden defense system, his voice grim. "Then let's give them something to chase." The defenses bought them time, but their escape was fraught with danger. Emma's courage and Kale's resourcefulness carried them through, but not without cost. By the time reinforcements arrived, an unprecedented coalition of human and reptilian forces, they were both battered but unbroken. A new dawn. The extremists' defeat marked a turning point. The summit reconvened under tighter security, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. Kale, now openly in his natural form, addressed the delegates. "My people are not perfect," he admitted, his golden eyes meeting theirs. "But neither are yours. Perfection isn't the goal, survival and coexistence are." Emma's speech echoed his sentiments. "Fear nearly cost us everything. Let's not allow it to define us any longer. Together, we can build a future where neither species has to live in the shadows." The resulting treaty was historic, laying the groundwork for integration. Reptilians, under strict guidelines, were allowed to live among humans, their technology a boon to Earth's struggling ecosystems. Humanity, in turn, began to see the Reptilians not as invaders but as partners. An enduring bond. Months later, Kale and Emma stood on Earth's rejuvenated plains, the air vibrant with life. Kale turned to Emma, his gaze soft. "Do you ever wonder if we could have done this differently?" Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the setting sun. "If we had, we wouldn't be standing here." Kale reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. "Thank you, Emma, for seeing me when no one else did." Emma leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "You saved me too, Kale." Their love, once improbable, became a symbol of hope. In a universe where chaos was the norm, they had found order in each other, a reminder that even amid the stars, the greatest battles are won with trust and compassion.